For years, Borders shaped how millions of people learned, imagined, and discovered new ideas. Its brand felt permanent, its presence unquestionable, and its success seemed immune to change. But even the strongest empires can collapse when confidence replaces awareness. Tonight, we explore how Borders' dominance turns into vulnerability, and how silence often precedes the fall. Welcome to Corporate Collapse. How Borders went from bookstore giant to complete collapse for years. Borders defined how millions of people discovered books, turning simple retail into an experience that felt cultural, intellectual, and permanent. At its peak, the company stood as one of the most powerful names in global bookselling, with vast stores that invited customers to stay for hours, explore endlessly, and associate reading with comfort and discovery. Few people, inside or outside the company, believed Borders could ever fail. Borders was built on a deceptively simple idea: make bookstores bigger, better stocked, and more welcoming than anything that had existed before. Instead of cramped aisles and limited selections, Borders offered massive spaces filled with thousands of titles, comfortable seating, and an atmosphere that encouraged browsing rather than rushing to the checkout. Customers did not merely shop at Borders, they lingered, read, and returned. As the company expanded, this model proved extraordinarily successful. Publishers relied on Borders to distribute enormous volumes of books, while independent bookstores struggled to compete with its scale and pricing power. By the late 1990s, Borders occupied prime retail locations across the United States and beyond, enjoying strong brand loyalty and the confidence that comes with market dominance. Yet beneath this success lay a critical misunderstanding of the future. Borders understood books deeply, but it failed to grasp how technology would transform the way people bought and consumed them. Online retail was emerging, but the company viewed it as a minor extension of physical stores rather than a fundamental shift in consumer behavior. This mindset led to a decision that would later define its downfall. Instead of building its own online sales platform, Borders outsourced its e-commerce operations to Amazon. At the time, the choice seemed logical and efficient, sparing Borders the cost and complexity of developing new technology. Customers could still buy books online under the Borders name, while Amazon handled the logistics behind the scenes. What Borders did not realize was that every one of those transactions strengthened Amazon's relationship with Borders' own customers. Over time, shoppers learned to trust Amazon directly, while Borders lost the opportunity to understand online buying behavior and build digital expertise. A future competitor was quietly becoming dominant. Inside Borders, the warning signs were easy to ignore. Physical stores still generated significant revenue, foot traffic remained strong, and the brand continued to expand. Success created the illusion that there was no urgency to change, even as consumer habits began to shift toward convenience, personalization, and home delivery. Rather than adapting quickly, Borders doubled down on what it already knew. The company continued opening large stores, increasing its fixed costs, and locking itself into a business model that depended on high in-store sales. This strategy worked only as long as the traditional retail environment remained stable. When Borders finally attempted to build its own online presence, it was far too late. Amazon had already become synonymous with online book retail, setting customer expectations that Borders could not match. At the same time, digital reading began to gain traction, transforming books from physical objects into downloadable content. Once again, Borders hesitated. It delayed committing fully to e-books and dedicated reading devices, treating digital formats as secondary rather than central to the future of reading. By the time it entered the market, competitors had already established strong positions, leaving Borders to play catch-up with limited resources. As sales declined, the company's greatest strengths became its heaviest burdens. Large stores meant high rent and maintenance costs, while massive inventories tied up capital that was increasingly difficult to recover. Attempts to cut expenses led to reduced selection and a diminished in-store experience, eroding the very qualities that had once attracted loyal customers. The decline accelerated quickly. Suppliers tightened credit, cash flow problems intensified, and confidence among investors and employees evaporated. Borders eventually filed for bankruptcy, closing hundreds of stores and laying off thousands of workers. A brand that once symbolized the joy of discovering books disappeared from the retail landscape. Borders did not fail because people stopped loving books. It failed because it misunderstood change and overestimated the protection offered by its past success. The company assumed that size guaranteed safety, that dominance ensured relevance, and that the future would resemble the past closely enough to allow gradual adaptation. In reality, the collapse of Borders was the result of accumulated hesitation. Outsourcing digital strategies surrendered critical knowledge. Delayed investments forfeited first-mover advantages, and aggressive physical expansion removed flexibility when it was needed most. None of these decisions seemed disastrous on their own, but together they created an irreversible trajectory. The story of Borders offers a broader lesson about modern business. Success can blind leaders to emerging threats, while comfort can delay necessary transformation. Markets do not reward tradition or loyalty. They reward those who recognize change early and act decisively. Borders trusted what had always worked. The world moved on. The collapse of Borders was not caused by a lack of customers or a loss of purpose, but by decisions shaped by comfort and delayed action. When leaders mistake past success for future security, change becomes invisible until it is too late. In business, survival belongs not to the biggest, but to those willing to adapt before they are forced to. This was corporate collapse.